Welcome to Still Speak Episode 1. This is a brand new podcast or channel, whatever you like to call it, because I'm probably going to have this on multiple platforms. And I've been wanting to do this for some time now, but was focusing really hard on how it was going to look or sound or when or how I was going to record it and, logos or, things of the sort and details that honestly really don't matter. And what I realized over the last few weeks is that there's so many cases unfolding and I was worrying about logos, so here I am, just rolling with it, and just gonna worry about those details later. And one case that actually sparked me to just roll with it was the case of Summer Wells out of Tennessee. If you follow true crime cases, you have most likely heard about it. Some of you might know minor details, some of you might know a lot of details, some of you may never heard of it. We'll find out, but we're going to get to that case in a few minutes. First, I want to say a few things. This will never be a drama channel, so don't worry. I will never participate in the extensive drama, harassing, or doxing that unfolds all over YouTube and between content creators on all the platforms. For now, I'm going to be working entirely alone, and I'll consider help, at a later date if this grows into something that I'm unable to control on my own, because I do also have a personal life. If I do end up getting assistance, it will be from people that I know for many years and have already proven to me that I can trust them. In the meantime, I most likely will keep comments off until I know that I can manage the influx. Please feel free to email me, and I'll do my best to read them and reply. The email address is stillspeakpod@gmail.com. Listen, if you don't like me, or are just here to attack me, or here to troll me, just know I'm uninterested. Totally uninterested. You absolutely have a right to your opinion. But it's my right to not engage you. There are endless channels that allow you to spew hate, and they'll engage you. Go there, just know, here, it won't happen. You're wasting your time, okay? The next thing I wanted to talk about was that I'm not going to appear on camera. I'm hoping that at a later time, I'll have videos, when I learn that those apps. But I'm never actually going to be on video. And the reason for that is that I want full focus on the cases we're discussing. And these cases are not about me. I don't want you to focus on the colors of my walls or what shirt I'm wearing or, my eyebrows and be wondering why my eyebrows are a certain shape. No, I want your full focus on the cases. I'm okay with any creator sharing my videos, so you don't need to email me to tattle on them. I won't be petty as long as the credit is given. That's all I care about, and I'll do the same. If I recommend another channel, it'll be because I found what they shared or said was good or important, and it won't mean that I agree with everything that person has ever said or done on their platform or channel. I also wanted to discuss the name I've chosen, Still Speak. I didn't really want a name I had to explain, but it's important to explain it because, it gives insight on how I look at cases. Victims, whether deceased or missing, can still speak to us, and it's often said they can, and I disagree. And no, I don't mean through a psychic. When we think of speaking, we think of actual verbal output. In the day and age of technology, I still see things like texting or Facebook messaging or emailing as speaking or talking, aka communicating. If I'm typing in Facebook Messenger and my husband asks what I'm doing, I'll usually respond by saying, I'm speaking to or talking to Sarah or whoever. I'm sure some of you do the same thing. Anyways, speaking can be more than that, though. For example, you ever hear someone say, that music spoke to me, or that book spoke to me, or whatever. Clearly, a book is not going to verbally speak to you, but you felt whatever the book was trying to tell you, or teach you, or the way they laid out a topic in a book really spoke to you. And that's how I view crime cases. Victims, while they're clearly present, in present day, not verbally speaking to us, they're still speaking to us, or talking to us, or communicating with us. They speak to us through their families and friends and others who knew them. They speak through evidence, the backstory, emails, texts, their patterns, personalities, and so much more. In crime cases, detectives and law enforcement examine, analyze, interpret evidence to figure out what happened. And they look at the victims, patterns, behaviors, personalities, communications, talk to the people that knew them and find out what the backstory is. The victim is still speaking to them, and it's just figuring out what is the full story telling us with all the details included. I consider myself objective, and others have confirmed this about me for sure, and I'm known for wanting to play defense. I really try my best to be unbiased. Once in a blue moon, that is hard to do, but I do try my best. I feel like I have a really good, healthy balance of feeling sympathetic to the family of the victim and the victim while also being able to easily and quickly remove my emotions from the equation to appropriately analyze the case details and facts. And I'm a stickler for sticking to the facts, not the rumors. And while I enjoy speculating and theorizing, I'm not one to really go off into land with crazy conspiracy-like theories. Let me give you an example. In the Chris Watts case, there was a theory that his company, Anadarko, was some evil dark company who killed his entire family. And there were actually quite a few people who actually believed this theory. And I just couldn't get on board with that. If the facts don't match that opinion, or theory, I should say, then we have to cross it off the list. I'm open-minded, and I kind of been known to change my initial stances on cases when more or new information comes out that is rather compelling, and I have no shame admitting if my initial thoughts were wrong. And then I've done this with several cases, and the newest one I've actually done it with is that of Summer Wells. And Summer is this beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde hair, little 5-year-old girl who's been missing since June 15th from her family's Tennessee home. She's still sadly missing. And so far, what we've been told, there's no evidence found that has given a clue on where she went or where she is. Today is August 18th, and it's officially over 2 months since she disappeared. We're going to get to Summer soon, but I really wanted to finish giving more insight to me, since this is my first episode ever, and I want you to get to know me a little bit better. There are other cases that I've changed my stance or view on, and one of that cases is actually that of Chris Watts. Now, I'm not going to cover Chris Watts on this podcast anytime soon. I'm waiting for time to pass, emotions to die down, because that case, for some reason, brings the craziness out of everyone, and it's next to impossible to have a full discussion about it. But I had an initial opinion in that case, and I later changed that opinion. And I haven't changed it back, at least not yet. And I likely won't at this point without, more concrete, undeniable, irrefutable proof, which will likely never happen since he took a plea deal. I'm going to refer to the Watts case a few times, just to use as examples, but I don't want to talk about that specific case anytime soon. That being said, besides my personal theory of that case, I do believe that there are only 2 possible scenarios, even though one of those is not my main opinion, and I'm able to see how anything is possible as long as the facts, evidence, context, and backstory, or all or one of those, matches the theory. It's totally fine to have an opinion, but if facts prove your opinion wrong, then your opinion holds no weight. Isn't it better to have facts to back up your opinion? There's another one that I've not really fully changed my stance on, per se, and that's of Scott Peterson. He's another extremely high-profile case. However, I was totally open-minded to reconsider my initial feelings and thoughts and opinions on that case. I followed Scott's case closely from day one, and I was obsessed with it, asked my husband. And back then, I loved Nancy Grace. I'm not a huge Nancy Grace fan anymore. So, that says that. And we know that Nancy really went for Scott. I've grown as a person substantially since then, and I don't process and view things the same way anymore. Back then, I was, let me give you a range so I don't give you out my age. I was roughly between 20 and 24 years old at the time. I wasn't married yet, I didn't have kids yet, and quite frankly, our brains aren't even fully developed at that age until we're like 25. Back then I had a very mainstream news mindset, and wow, I've really changed because I don't believe anything related to mainstream, nothing, at all. With Scott, I was like 100,000% on board with him being guilty of him killing his wife and unborn son. Yeah, I know 100,000% isn't a thing, but I'm just trying to show you how much I believed he was guilty. And today, some 17 years later, which is mind-blowing to me because I can remember going out on my lunch breaks at work to listen to the updates of his trial like it was yesterday, and their son would be, almost an adult. It's been a long time, but wow. Okay, let's move on for that, because that makes me feel old. I'm going to say as of today, 17 years later, I'm about, 70 to 75% sure he's guilty. So, I changed my view, not from guilty to not guilty, but I changed how much I think he's guilty. And I'm definitely open-minded to the idea that maybe Scott was just a crap husband. I mean, not necessarily a murderer. He definitely came across as arrogant, I could tell you that much. Back then, though, even though I was, beyond sure of his guilt, I always felt that it was unfair that he was sentenced to death. His case was most certainly circumstantial, and there was no concrete proof that he committed this murder or crime of his wife and son. And while I do believe in the death penalty for certain cases, I pause, when I see, cases that come out of the Innocent Project. So I need to see undeniable proof of guilt to be comfortable with anyone being put to death. I just do. I don't like risking somebody's life without concrete evidence. What made me open my eyes about Scott a little bit, or my mind and eyes, is the documentary on Hulu about the Peterson case. And I gotta admit, it was compelling. It was. And I went into this because all my friends who know I like true crime were like, you gotta watch it. And finally I was like, alright, I need something to watch. What am I gonna watch? Alright, I'll watch this. And I went in rolling my eyes because I'm thinking oh, give me a break. This dude is so guilty. Come on. But I went in, I started watching, and I ended thinking, oh my God. Is this possible? I was having a conversation with myself in my head thinking is it possible that we all had this wrong? Is it possible that this guy really didn't kill his wife and, his unborn son? I was whoa. I was completely taken back by what I had watched. But then, I had to sit and process, because that's how I do it. So I take the information in, I have an initial feeling, and then I have to process. So I'm processing the information, and I finally came to the conclusion that while I do still feel he's guilty, I'm not as convinced. And that's why I say 70 to 75%. I do believe he deserves a new trial now, that time has passed and the emotions of the case has dwindled down, and even I've questioned myself, is my gut feeling still that he's guilty because that was my stance back then and I was so concrete in it, and I just can't let that go. And after I thought about that for a little bit, that's not the case, because I really thought he was guilty, and now I'm like, I was wrong. So I don't know. But anyway, Scott Peterson. Anytime a case becomes widely known, I like to sit back and, observe people discussing the case. It's really fascinating to see how people react and respond to these cases. I've mostly stayed quiet about this case on social media platforms, and I've observed a lot longer than I typically do until now. So, the main people involved in the day Summer disappeared are as follows. Candace Wells, Summer's mom. Candy is the grandma. A minor named Hunter. Don Wells, Summer's father. And her 3 brothers. The day she disappeared, multiple locations were involved. An ER, a Walgreens, a swimming hole, Hunter's home, a grocery store, a Sonic, a smoke shop, and a vape shop. And then she went missing from their home when all those places were done. There's been several interviews done over the course of the 8 weeks. Most recently, there were long, thorough interviews conducted. One was with Hunter, another was with his mother and grandma, another with Candace, and then with Dawn. And then there's been, little other interviews here and there throughout the 2 months. The recent ones, and the ones that we're going to be talking about a lot, were done with a YouTube channel called The Interview Room. The host has experience in law enforcement. There are conflicting stories from Hunter and Candace on how Hunter was with them that day in a kind of he said, she said situation. And I'm actually kind of curious how that happened. We didn't get clarification of that in the interview that I just mentioned from either Hunter or Candace. Because, like I said one thing and one said the other thing, and there's been no, clarifying that. But I'd be interested to know, because it may matter in the grand scheme of the story, so I hope we find that out soon. But anyways, head over to the interview room, give those interviews a listen, give them a like, and subscribe to his channel. So, anyway, Candace picked up Hunter at his home, and they went to the ER because Candace had dropped off her mother there prior to that because she hurt her knee. So, her and Summer went and picked Hunter up and went back to the ER to pick up Grandma. After they get Grandma, they go to a Walgreens to drop off a prescription, and they stopped off, at a smoke shop and a vape shop. They went swimming a little bit, where Summer splashed around the water for what Candace says is about 20 minutes. On the way back from the swimming location, they picked up the prescription and they got slushies from Sonic. They stopped at a grocery store for a few items and then dropped off Hunter. So then after they drop off Hunter, Candy, her name's Candace too, but they call her Candy, so that's why we're calling her Candy. So this isn't confusing. Candace, Candy, and Summer start heading back to their home, which is a distance away in the country area, where her brothers were during the day. So, Don Wells, as far as we know, what we've been told by him, he was at work about 40 minutes away. So, according to Candace, they arrived home and carried in the groceries with help from the other kids, and Summer went inside the doorway area to play with her toys, and, she describes, doing some house stuff. They no mention of eating that day, so we can only assume maybe they ate something when they walked in the door. Candace talks about doing some laundry, and at some point, Candace steps outside, and she sees her mom by her trailer, which was not far from the house, and asked her what was going on, her mom said, I need to transfer these little cactuses to bigger pots. And so she was like, well, let me ask Summer if she wants to help, because, the boys aren't going to want to help. So she, says to Summer, do you want to help Grandma with the flowers? And Summer wanted to. So they began helping Grandma plant these cactuses, flowers. They originally said flowers, and then we later find out it was cactuses, whatever. Who cares, right? It's a minor detail. So they were doing that outside Grandma's trailer on the property, just feet away from the main home. And at one point, Summer, being 5 years old, she's over the chore and, wants to go back inside and play with her toys. Candace claimed that, she walked a little halfway towards the house. She saw Summer go inside, and then she walked up to the doorway, peeked her head inside, and told the boys to watch Summer. The boys were allegedly in the kitchen, watching TV, playing video games, and, just being boys on a school summer break. In what was originally described by Candace as 2 minutes, and later 2 to 5 minutes, she went inside and she didn't see Summer, and so she asked her boys that, where's Summer? And they said she went into the basement to play with her toys. So, we're going to talk about that 2 to 5 minutes later on, because I think it's been overly analyzed, but we'll get to that. So anyway, she proceeds to the area of the basement, and we see in the interview rooms video with Candace at the house, they have this little bar area, and underneath this little bar area is this, almost secret staircase to the basement. And as a 5-year-old, it's like, oh, that looks pretty cool and fun. If I was 5, I'd be like, wow, it's like a little secret passageway. As an adult, not so much. Probably fall and bust my ass. But anyway, so she goes over to that area and she's hollering for Summer. And she's not answering. According to Candace, this was not, common for her. So she's going, Summer, no answer. Summer, no answer. Summer, okay, you get the gist, right? So she says, Summer, answer me. And still, so she gets, no reply. So she climbs downstairs and she can't find her anywhere. So she starts looking under blankets and beds and, searching the whole basement area. Now, it should be mentioned, because it's really important, is there is a basement door in the basement that leads to outside. Because their house is kind of on this hill area, those of you from up north, you might be a little confused that a basement would have a back door, but just think that this is kind of a house sitting on a slanted hill, and so you can get from the outside and the back, but it's not your typical. I know, up north, basements, you have storm-type doors, and you can go down. This is an actual door, okay? And you can see it, and I'm hoping in a future episode to have a picture of it, because I think it's super important, this area of the house. And when you go out this door, you are completely out of sight of the front door and where Grandma's trailer was, okay? When Candace had told the boys to watch Summer, she had went back over to Grandma's to help fix her knee brace. And whatever else, but this is what she has said, the knee brace. So, if Summer went out this back door, they would have never saw it, because it's completely on the opposite side of the house, and it's, a hill. So, if Summer came out, if she went left, she can get to the front door in Grandma's trailer, but she'd have to climb this really steep hill and turn the corner all the way in order to get up there. If she came out of the house, the back door in the basement, and went right, it would lead you to this swing. Now, this swing has been talked about a lot because it's kind of like Summer's swing. This is an area that she loved, and she loved to swing. And it's one of those swings that's like a rope, and there's a disc. And you kind of wrap your legs around the disc, and you hang onto the rope, and you swing on a tree. And you can tell that she really loved this swing. There's TikTok videos of it, but she loved it because, when you walk on grass repeatedly in the same spot, and you kind of get this little track, and you were able to actually see her little track straight to her swing. Which is a little sad, because you think, like, this little girl loved to swing, and unfortunately now she's missing. So, anyway, Candace, goes outside. It's just like, any parent would do. And she starts looking around, looks at the swing, looks around the swing, looks around the property, and doesn't find her. So she calls her husband, Don Wells, almost, from what the way the story was told, almost immediately, to tell him that she couldn't find her. And, they don't have cell coverage out there. And so, from what we've been told, it sounds like they used Facebook Messenger via Wi-Fi to communicate with one another. So she calls Don and tells him that she can't find her. And, obviously, as a parent, you're not going to sit around and wait for cops to show up, and they live pretty far out into, away from town, and so there was going to be a little bit of time for them to get there. So Candace jumps into the car, and she starts driving around the property, and now her sons are helping look for her, and her mom is calling Summer's name, because remember, she has a hurt knee, so she's not, running around like a lunatic, but she's probably looking around with them. And as time ticks by, the cops and Don arrive at the property, and that's a background summary. And I just described it that way because that's the way Candace described it. Now, of course, she goes into a little more detail, but that's the basics of how the story has been told. And today I heard a channel saying she went missing at 5:30 as fact. The 911 call came in at 6:27. So this person was trying to say, well, she went missing, at 5:30 and wasn't reported for an hour, later. I'm not really sure where they got this 5:30, but it's certainly not a fact. I think they might have heard that from law enforcement that, in a press conference that was held within the first 24 hours. And it seemed to me as more of like an estimate of time. Candace has made very clear that she doesn't pay attention to time, and oftentimes, law enforcement report things wrong in the beginning of cases because you have one, investigator or detective talking to them, and then that person relays it to the person who's doing the press conference. And what happens when information gets passed from one to another. Sometimes it gets confused, and it's still early on. And sometimes in these press conferences, you do get some misinformation. It's human error. So don't crucify me for telling the story that way. I just did it as a quick summary of what we've been repeatedly told at this point. Now here's the timeline of law enforcement activity. So, first 911 call was around 6:27 p.m. It should be noted that Don also called 911. At midnight that day, the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, issued endangered child alert. Okay? Which is normal because they don't know if she was abducted, so they don't have suspect information or a car description to do an Amber Alert. But by the next morning, the 16th, they did change it to an Amber Alert because they believed her to be in imminent danger, which obviously she's in imminent danger. She's 5. So, if she's been abducted, even more danger. And if she walked off and she's 5 and she's out in this country area, again, she's in imminent danger. And this was an unusual move. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they did this. But usually in cases, we're always saying, why didn't they do an Amber Alert? And then you have to explain, like, well, you need a suspect and you need a car. And I think Amber Alert's amazing. I just wish that they would do it for every missing kid regardless. So I was really happy that they did this, but it's highly unusual. And mid-afternoon that day, they did their first press conference, and they said they had received 30 tips, but still nothing. And then on the 17th, the search teams described that the area was very dense and dangerous, and it was really hampering their search efforts. By the 17th, they had already searched 680 acres, and that grew into the thousands over time. On the 17th, law enforcement asked for the public to check their surveillance cameras, which is very common. And then Don, the dad, did the first TV media interview, and his son was by his side when he did that. On the 19th, Summer and the property photos were released of them so that people can get an idea of her and the property. On the 22nd, they said that they had received, in total, 221 tips, and they had asked the public to search their barns and sheds and crawl spaces and, anywhere a child could hide. Now, this is odd because this was a week later that they're now telling the public to check these things. Now, if a child in my area goes missing, super close to me, I think one of the first things I'm going to do is check my property. It just seems like common sense, right? But not everybody has common sense. So I'm glad that they asked this, and usually they ask this. It's just odd that they waited an entire week to tell people to do this. And they might have their reasons for that. I don't know. So on the 23rd, they put a roadblock up, and this was so that they can question neighbors and commuters in the area. And it's actually really smart, because you're not going to make all these people to come down to the station or go door to door. Just set up a roadblock and ask them questions, right? Did you see anything that day? Do you recall anything? And things of the sort. This is also not unusual. On the 26th, the TBI had asked for the driver of a 1998 to 2000 model red in color Toyota Tacoma that has a full bed ladder rack and white buckets in the bed of the truck to come forth, that they might be a witness. They did this off a tip. The person still has not come forth. Could mean something, and maybe not. 12 days in, they scale back the searches. Now, this is normal, because these searches take a lot of manpower, resources, money, time. This particular area is super dangerous, like they mentioned earlier in that week, and it's summer, and it's hot, and so what they sometimes do is they scale back. Without any credible leads, you don't want to just be walking out there aimlessly. So they scale back, and sometimes what they even do is they go back over what they have already searched, but this time do a very thorough search. A lot of people were alarmed by this, that they had scaled back, but again, I've seen this done many times. By July 2nd, there was 750 tips, and none were credible, which is really sad. 10 days later, the police said that, all possibilities were still on the table, and that, there was nobody ruled out as of yet. Tip number was up to 935. On 7/12, Don claimed in another interview that both him and Candace had taken and passed lie detectors. Anybody who has information on Summer is asked to please call 1-800-TBI-FIND or Hawkins County Sheriff's Office at 423-272-7121, or you can email them at tips@tbi.tn.gov. Now, she was last seen in gray pants, pink shirt, and was most likely barefoot. I want to focus a lot on what the public has been saying, and of course go heavy into what the family has been sharing as well, and give my point of view, opinion, perspective of the parents' statements and even the public's comments and concerns and judgments. And my hope in by doing this would be to open minds a bit more, or get people to be better at slowing down and processing information before reacting or trying to understand better before spewing word vomit all over the internet. And lastly, maybe to learn how to be a help in these cases and not a hindrance. So we're going to get into that. And just to let you know, this is not my first time recording this. I've actually recorded 5 episodes and then decided to go back and redo them because I wasn't 100% in love with them. This is my first go at a channel, so bear with me here. But I can tell you right now, because I already recorded this, and I know that I have so much more to go than 5 episodes, this is a warning. This is going to be about 8 to 10 episodes on Summer Wells alone, with episodes varying between, 35 minutes to an hour. So come next time with a coffee, a cocktail, maybe a snack, and we'll start the breakdown. That's all I have to say about now. And besides your drink or coffee or snack, when you come next time, bring an open mind, logic, and common sense. And I'll see you soon.